Morning, everybody. I was 61 when I came to New York to be Fiji's ambassador to the United Nations. That was 7.5 years ago. Since that time, I've chaired the board of the $9 billion UNDP, UNOPS, UNFPA executive board. I've chaired the largest negotiating group in the United Nations, the Group of 77 in China, which is 134 countries. I have chaired the International Seabed Authority. I have been elected as president of the General Assembly. The point I'm making is that in your 60s, you are actually at the top of your game. Taking from my father's example, I intend to spend my 70s in a similar vein. And you know, it's all basically dependent, I suppose, on your health, both physical and mental, but as long as those two factors are in place, why shouldn't the older generation be doing what we're expected to do, which is pass down our wisdom to younger generations? So I just wanted to make that point because I want to focus really more on change in this address, since that's really what's going on around us as you know, young people become middle-aged and become old. So that's what my remarks will be mainly about. And I guess I was aware of change from a very young age. In fact, a very poignant moment yesterday talking to my granddaughter on Skype. She lives in Auckland in New Zealand, and she's just turned 6. And we were chatting away about her birthday, and she was happy. She just got the presents we sent her. And then she got sad, and I said, well, why are you sad? She said, I always feel sad on the last day of my old age. And I thought, whoa, there's another philosopher in the family. But anyway, as a young kid growing up in Fiji, I'm a 5th generation Fijian, the beauty was all around us. It was really unsullied in those days. It was before the plastic came to our country. And in fact, I can remember, and please don't quote me on this, sitting with my friends, because we were all naughty little schoolboys at the age of 11 or 12, you know, this would have been about 1959, I guess, maybe 1960. Sitting in the bushes smoking cigarettes. Everybody smoked in those days. Unfortunately, the kids did as well. Well, the naughty ones did anyway. I can remember the first plastic cigarette lighter being put in my hand. And I said, what is this? And they said, oh, it's like those new pens that we've been given, the Bic Biro pens, which we weren't allowed to use, by the way, at school, because they wreck the handwriting of children, ballpoints. We were still writing with pen and ink beautifully in cursive script back at that time. And cigarettes were being lit by lighters, which were not throwaway things. They were things that you kept and treasured and poured a little bit of fuel into once every 2 months. So the point I'm making here is that life was okay. In fact, it was beautiful before the advent of all this plastic that came into our lives. And sure enough, you know, within 10 years, all this plastic trash was starting to appear on our previously pristine beaches. You were seeing this stuff washed up. And I'll never forget that sense of, this can't be right. You know, for an 11-year-old kid to realize on holding this throwaway thing that this can't be right. You know, how can that be right? I mean, what happens when you multiply that? That occurred to me as an 11-year-old sitting in those bushes. And it's proven to be so, you know, because we are now in a stage on this planet where plastic is basically taking over the biosphere. There will be more plastic in the ocean than fish by the year 2050 at current rates. There's a garbage truck, a large garbage truck, tipping plastic into the ocean every minute of every day. That's going on and has been going on for a long time. That's what humanity is doing to our beautiful environment. So I've seen that change, and of course with everything that comes with that oil industry, and plastic comes from the oil industry, we've had the warming of our atmosphere as well. And again, for me as an islander, the tragedy of that is that the ocean is warming and the coral reefs are dying. Now, if you had the joy of swimming amongst coral reefs as I did as a young kid, and right through to my middle age, you see life in a profuseness which, walking around Manhattan, it's bland Manhattan compared with a 5-minute swim down a living coral reef. You see 1 million life forms around you in the space of 5 minutes. But now those large areas of those reefs are just white deserts with no life in them at all. Why? Because the atmosphere is warming, making the sea warmer, killing the coral, and driving life away from the tropics. Not just big fish, but the micro life as well is moving away from the tropics, so the water's just too hot. So again, this is what the changes that have occurred during my lifetime that I'm talking to you about. My wife, when I go too far on this stuff, almost strangles me and says, solutions, not problems, give us solutions. And those of you that were at the Ocean Conference last month know that, and actually here in this room is where the partnership dialogues were held, that we were very solution-driven. We wanted to hear what all the problems were with the ocean, but we wanted the solution, the solutions from the best of world authorities. And we got them, and we're modeling them, and we're analyzing them, and we're going to go and start putting them into practice now. So, I do think that as change happens, sometimes change is for the better. I put these supercomputers we carry around with us and that whole interconnectivity that we have around our world and what that can do for education and so on. I put that in the realm of good positive changes that are happening in the world. But we've got these negative things that are happening in the world as well, and it's up to us to find the solutions to turn the negatives into positives, or at least to ameliorate them. And that's what we're doing on climate change, and that's what we're doing on ocean action. Look, let me just go to script here and just say a little bit about the Sustainable Development Goals, because I bet there are people in this room who are not familiar with the 17 Sustainable Development Goals. And as one of the sort of lead, let's say, designers and advocates for the 17 Sustainable Development Goals, let me be honest and tell you, I would not be able to tell you 1 to 17 and not make a mistake. So I'm not asking you all to learn the 17 Sustainable Development Goals. I'm just saying understand the logic of the Sustainable Development Goals. And the logic of the Sustainable Development Goals is that humanity has been on a course towards a precipice of unsustainability, and unless we provide a good path for humanity away, we are stealing from the future of our grandchildren and those that come after them. Therefore, and again, it was in this room, for 2 years, we hammered out the Sustainable Development Goals, the 17 Sustainable Development Goals, which cover everything from poverty eradication to gender equality to good infrastructure to good health through to living in harmony with our environment. So, these are very important things. In fact, they are the recipe for a sustainable place for humanity on this planet. So young people need to take ownership of these goals, and we, the older people who made the things the way they are, also need to take responsibility and work with them to make these 17 Sustainable Development Goals achievable by the year 2030, which is when they run out. So, what do we say about the Sustainable Development Goals? I would say that there were 2 things really that were done in 2015 which changed the course of humanity. That was the Paris Climate Agreement and the adoption of the 17 Sustainable Development Goals. Those 2 things provide us with a future. And as I say, without them, we do not have a sustainable place for our grandchildren on this planet and those that come after. Let me say something about population. To achieve these Sustainable Development Goals, critically, we have to tap into the enormous potential of both the old and the young. There's 1.8 billion young people across our world. We've got to harness their energy and their ingenuity, especially that ingenuity side. I refer to those supercomputers we walk around with. They understand those 10 times, 100 times better than I do. My children and grandchildren just show me stuff all the time that blows my mind. So we've got to use their ingenuity to drive the urgent, scaled-up action needed to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals. At the same time, we've got to tap into that vast knowledge and experience of the 962 million people on our planet who are currently aged 60 and above. Interesting fact, I didn't know this. Indeed, at the current unprecedented rate at which the global population is aging, By 2050, the proportion of people aged 60 years or older is expected, for the first time in history, to match those aged 15 years or less. Interesting trend. So it's in that context that, you know, and we have to think about a new way of looking at people over 60 as a result. So we've got to ensure the full potential for each of these generations is enabled to positively work on the SDGs and shape our societies and break down the prejudicial attitudes and negative stereotypes and discriminatory practices. We've got to ensure that all people, young and old, recognize themselves as owners and drivers and beneficiaries of the SDGs. As individuals, families, communities, we all have rights, but we also have responsibilities when it comes to sustainability. It was Nelson Mandela who said that sometimes it falls upon a generation to be great. You can be that generation. Well, in this case, we're talking about two generations, the young of today and the old of today, and we both can be that generation. Therefore, I'm going to conclude my remarks with a couple of points. It's a call to action, really, to all, young and old, to join us in our global efforts to implement the Sustainable Development Goals, to be voices that amplify the message of the Sustainable Development Goals across our world, and to be educators, we can all educate, who share with others your knowledge of the importance of the Sustainable Development Goals. I ask you to be motivators and examples to your family, your friends and communities, so that what is sustainable embodies all our lives, and to be active citizens who demand urgent and responsible change from those around you. So as a grandfather, I care with all my being that we will bequeath a sustainable world to our grandchildren and those that come after. And it's for that reason that I've devoted myself, and during the presidency of this General Assembly, the General Assembly itself, to driving implementation of the Sustainable Development Goals, and to participating and forming such efforts as the Historic Ocean Conference last month, in June, sorry. It's in all of our interests and those of our loved ones that we all play our part to the best of our ability, whatever our age, in building a sustainable world for all, and I thank you for your attention this morning. Thank you.